book friends. It is I, Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. Cheers, good to see you. It's been a while since I made a video. I have got a stack of 25 comics I've read in the past 2 weeks, I guess. And I'm going to try and go through them all. I've kind of lumped them into categories. First off, kind of in its own separate category, is The Doctor, which I kickstarted from it was a Kickstarter from Brian LCS, Brian Brandow. He is the writer and the entrepreneur behind this comic, and I enjoyed it, and I definitely want to read the next issue. It's kind of a decompressed story about a therapist who works with people with superpowers. It's kind of on the amateur verging on more professional, if that makes sense, which makes sense. It's Brian's first comic, and probably an early comic by the artist that he hired too, who is named Van Mack. So yeah, it's intriguing, and I'm very curious to see what happens next. So I'll probably be kickstarting issue 2. Hopefully Brian will get the whole story done and put it into a trade eventually, and I think that will be its best form. So first little category, 2 anthology books. I know I had a third one, but I misplaced it. One is from Boom, and it's called Hello Darkness. And I was pretty excited by the cover and a quick flip through and looking at the art. But I just liked every story in here. I thought every story in here was a belly flop. There was some cool ideas, but they all just did not gel or went south in some horrible way. A number of them, or at least one of them in particular, the bowling alley, was really absurdly bloody for no particular reason, as far as I could tell. So anyway, a nice package, but I really did not get into it. On the other hand, Cruel Universe, and I went into this with very low expectations because they're trying to somehow revive EC Comics, and A, that's not easy, and B, despite, I guess they officially have the name of EC now, but anyway, the art doesn't look like it or anything, but the writing, the stories were very good. There's a Matt Kint, Karina Bechko, that name seems slightly familiar, Chris Condon, slightly familiar name, Ben Winters, not a familiar name, but all of these were well-written stories, and the art was good. They don't at all try to write the way they wrote back then in the early 1950s, I think is the peak of the EC. The pacing of the story is more modern and everything, but they do successfully go for the twist. And the twists aren't the same as the old EC twists, but they are pretty effective twists. I mean, a twist is always going to be fun, but kind of shallow too. So I am definitely putting Cruel Universe on my pull list. So next we have I've clumped together what I decided were kind of superhero stories. There aren't a lot of superhero stories here, but while reading Power Fantasy, I could not figure out that this was a superhero story at all. But when I got to the end, the final page, I realized, oh, these people all are superheroes. Or I shouldn't say superheroes, but people with superpowers. I thought they were metaphors or angels or something. The bulk of the book is people meeting up in different places and having conversations, and you can't, or I couldn't really figure out the context of their conversation and who they were and what they were talking about. But there is a revelation on the final page that made me half want to go back and reread it, although I fell asleep reading this book. So I might try to reread it. It has this crazy thing, which is basically the indicia in every language they could find. Then also kind of a superhero, kind of science fiction is Space Ghost. I normally get the A cover. This is the D cover. But the A covers on this, at first I thought they were cool, but now I'm feeling like they might be done at least in part by artificial intelligence. They just have that look, and every time I see stuff and suspect it's artificial intelligence, I get depressed. But the inside is definitely, this is a fun comic. It's not deep at all. It's the art. The art is what it is. It's kind of 90s-ish. It's kind of, for me personally, a mix of good and bad. But I'm having fun reading Space Ghost, and I'll keep up with it. But I don't know. The art, the 90s style art, implies something that maybe doesn't match perfectly with the story in my mind. But anyway, I enjoy it. I enjoyed, well, I've read the issue 0 from Free Comic Book Day and now Flash Gordon #1, and I'm really digging what they're doing here. It's similar to Space Ghost in a sense, sort of half science fiction, half superhero, but they're playing a lot of interesting twists and turns. I really like the art in here, which is not retro at all either, but it's very good, solid, modern superhero-ish art. And this artist, Will Conrad, has done a lot of work that I liked at DC in the past 2 decades, I think. So yeah, definitely excited for Flash Gordon. I put that on my pull list. And then we come to an enjoyable, odd comic called The Pedestrian. From this, I think it's a new publisher, Magma. And the art's pretty nice in here. It's hard, it feels like this is like part tongue-in-cheek comedy and part kind of, I don't know how to put it, but part kind of stories of people at the fringe of society, in a sense, or not at the bottom end of society, with bad jobs and things like that, and kind of realistic and touching about that. So it's an interesting mix of things, and it's hard to see where they're going, but I definitely want to read a few more issues of The Pedestrian. And yeah, the Magma. Then I read the first 2 issues of Black Label's Zatanna. I don't know why this is Black Label and some things aren't. This has a really good story and art that I absolutely love. I have been enjoying other work by Javier Rodriguez, but I think this is his best work yet. Maybe he's got the color right a little better. I think he does his own color. He has these fantastic layouts, fantastic sort of visual concepts, and it's a really good story. Sort of, I guess it's Black Label because it's an Elseworlds, right? It's retelling or redoing a new version of Zatanna's origin, and I think it's a very good one. So she's someone who only wants to do magic tricks, and she doesn't want to do true magic. But of course, people in stories don't get things going the easy way that they want them to. So yeah, this is a fantastic comic. I don't know how many issues there'll be. Black Label, but sort of normal size, very high priced, $6. I haven't counted the pages, but it might be a few pages longer than a normal comic. So there's that. Unless you have no boundaries in what you'll pay for individual issues, maybe that's one to wait for in trade. This one is $6 also, but it is double length. It is the 4th book in Batman Dark Age. I'm still loving it. Michael Allred art just creates its own world, and it works very well with the kind of story that Mark Russell is writing. Mark Russell, one of the quirkier but better writers in mainstream comics right now. And this is one of his best works at DC. I liked the Superman book they did together before, but I think this Batman one is even better. And I would never have thought Michael Allred was a good person to do Batman, but now I'm loving it. Okay, the next set of comics is crime, noir, detective, or just crime kind of comics. And it's not a genre that I'm madly in love with. I enjoy a bit of crime comics. I certainly am sold on the work of Brubaker and Phillips and their criminal series and a bunch of their others. And maybe that has helped develop my taste for it. But there seem to be a lot of these coming out right now. And all but one of the ones that I read are excellent. And I'm trying to decide, do I keep reading them all? Because it's kind of a genre that I'm happy to just have a small part of my reading be crime comics. So self-help. I enjoyed the first issue, utterly lost me in this second issue. The art's cool, but I feel like they flipped the plot so much from the first issue that I just sort of start drifting away from it, even though it might be kind of a clever flip of the concept. So yeah, I'm just not sure. I don't think I'll read more of this unless maybe I hear some other people say that it's developing really well, because 2 issues going off in 2 different directions, it's a bit confusing. Talk about a bit confusing. Final issue of The Six Fingers, already its companion magazine, the One Hand, has already ended. And so this is the end from this point of view. And it was, both of these comics have not ended as satisfactorily as I thought they were going to from the previous issues. But yeah, so it's just kind of middling for me, but I'm actually going to try to reread all 10 issues, 5 issues of each, and see if I have a different opinion, at least if I find the time to do that. And then from Stephanie Phillips and Goran Sudzuka, I don't know. I picked this up because of Goran Sudzuka's art. I remember him on some cool comics, like I think he worked on the New 52 Wonder Woman alongside Cliff Chang, and I remember really liking that. And the art is really good in here, and actually Stephanie Phillips' story in here is really good. It's definitely a crime story, maybe not a mystery to be solved, but what will the people do faced with very difficult choices in this sort of I am just assuming it's Miami or somewhere in Florida, but it's about cocaine dealers and this really tough girl who's just out of prison, and this lady who is trying to go into drug dealing on her own, break away from the mob or the gang. Reading these comics, so I like that a lot, but I don't know, do I stick with it? It was a $5 book. Boom, a lot of Boom books are $5 now. So then we have this Mad Cave book, Mugshots, which is also excellent. It's a British mob kind of story about a gangster who's helping his family try to find out what happened to his niece. And it has this fantastic sort of minimalistic art, minimalistic coloring that I really enjoy. It really works, really good storytelling, and the script is really good too. But yeah, do I need all of these? And this one is $6, but it is a double. It's twice as many pages roughly as others. So I'm definitely sticking with Mugshots because I've already kind of got hooked on that. And another one I'm kind of hooked on is Sanction, which is a police procedural and also kind of not rogue cop, but cop who believes in justice, who's going against what the rest of the system wants him to do. It takes place in 1980s Russia, in Petersburg, I think. And another one with excellent art, excellent writing. Part of me, with all of these things, a problem with a kind of mystery story, or even kind of a crime twist story, is a lot rests on the end. It can be really good, and then if you get to the final issue and it's kind of it kind of waters down the whole thing. But that said, I read 2 issues of Sam and Twitch, number 4 and 5. It's really mostly a Twitch story. It's a fantastic police procedural, incredible art. The covers don't at all give you a sense of the art on the inside. And script and plot by Todd McFarlane with a co-plotter, but the script apparently is all his, and it is written really well. It makes me think this is what, as a writer, Todd McFarlane was born to write this kind of story. It just unfolds wonderfully. The characters feel fully realized. The issues that Twitch is going through in his personal life and his professional life feel spot on, and it is kind of matter of fact, horrific serial killer kind of stuff. I mean, Todd McFarlane, you have totally impressed me with this. Now, again, will we get to the end and the conclusion, and will the conclusion have something really goofy that will make me... I think Sam and Twitch is so good that even if the end was bad, I would still be happy I read the whole thing. I'm a little less sure about some of these others. Okay, now on to science fiction and fantasy. Those are some of my favorite genres, so I've got a lot of those, and I don't ever say, hey, maybe I shouldn't get so much science fiction and fantasy. I always want more. And actually, there was crossover with that pretend EC comic. That was all science fiction, and maybe that's part of why I loved it so much. However, Love Me, a story in a world where robots exist, but people don't like them much, kind of began to rub me the wrong way by this final issue. It is the end, number 4, so it was only a 4-issue commitment. And I did love the art throughout. But the kind of, simplicity and simplistic way things worked out in this story and the way the characters behave and stuff, it began to rub me a little bit the wrong way. I'm glad I read it. But yeah, so maybe, even when it's not a mystery, some stories can wear you out by the end, even if they're good at first. I enjoy Napalm Lullaby, which is, I guess I could have put it in the superhero category. It's kind of a what if some rather disturbing religious cult got a hold of a Superman-like character and then pushed in the Rick Remender way to the extremes. But this issue is almost entirely after, what is this, issue number 5, after 4 issues where Remender wasn't explaining very much of anything, he does a giant info dump in this issue. And it's okay, but I don't know, not quite satisfying in it. Even though he dumps so much information on us, there's some loose ends of how all of this could have really worked out the way he says it does. It feels like, for instance, the cult took over the world before their adopted son, some members of the cult had adopted the Superman-like baby, before he'd grown up very much, and before he had been, it's just hard for me to understand how they made it work. And he's I shouldn't give away too much. But anyway, there's kind of some interesting twists too. So I liked it, but I don't know, wish for a little more. And then I I had a hell of a lot of fun reading Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft number 5. And I think you could just read, this is the final issue of this particular Elvira arc. I think you could just read this issue because I only read issue 1, maybe issue 2, and then I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find it 3 and 4. I might not even been able to find issue 2. But I had the idea of what was going on, and in this issue, we end up in the nether dimension where Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth rule, and it's just some goofy fun. But if you like H.P. Lovecraft and his stories, it's kind of fun to see it goofed on here. And, the Elvira character is done kind of pitch perfect. And, H.P. Lovecraft, we make fun of him a little bit, but it's still, you feel the love for the fiction that H.P. Lovecraft wrote, even if he's a dubious character. So anyway, I'm thinking about adding Elvira to my pull since it doesn't show up in shops that much. The next one is Elvira meets Betty Page, which interests me less, but maybe I'll just ask for all the Elviras. David Avallone, who's the writer, does a really good job, and the art's quite good. You know, sometimes with Dynamite they don't use the best artists, but actually this artist does Elvira and the other characters really well, and the coloring's nice too. Okay, I've been really loving Lester of the Lesser Gods. This is the second mini-series. Weirdly, it seems to wrap up Lester's story. It gives him, well, I guess it's not too bad of a spoiler to say it gives him a happy ending, and I don't know. Of course, all the happiness could be taken away from him again for another issue. The art, everything stays up to par here. The art's fantastic. The scatological humor continues at a furious pace, and it's very imaginative and everything like that. I just was a little surprised by giving Lester a happy ending. Also, this cover somehow makes me think of a image from Den by Richard Corbin. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if it's just in my head. Another book I'm really loving is this Grendel series, which they confirm in the back here what Jared Osborne mentioned in a video I was watching, that, or maybe in a comment somewhere, that this Grendel is really going to be a 12-issue series, but they're breaking it up into 3 4-issue miniseries. So that's why it's got the complicated title of Grendel, Devil's Crucible, Defiance. And it's kind of half sci-fi dystopia, half fantasy. We got evil vampires. We've got massive battles with axes. It's very, Grendel meets Conan meets Road Warrior, I guess, and I really enjoyed it. So in the back here they say, so it's going to be Grendel, Devil's Crucible Defiance, Grendel, Devil's Crucible Sedition, and Grendel's Devil Crucible Necrotic. But basically, this is a hard R rating. They're not holding back at all. There's no comics code in this book. But Grendel comes back to Earth. The Grendels are still remembered. Whatever the Grendels were, I still don't know. But the world is being ruled by these vampires, and they've got kind of humanity. They want to keep humanity down. Now, originally, Grendel was a bad guy in the early stories, and then there's these futuristic stories where, are they good or bad? I don't know. But really enjoyed that. Also really enjoyed The Goon. The writer of Lester of the Lesser Gods, Eric Powell, is the writer and artist on The Goon. For some reason, this current series is black and white. It looks really nice. I hope it's not a sign that they're running out of money to do The Goon, and so they're not doing it in color. But another really fun issue. The Goon kind of, I guess it evolves a little bit, but it's basically an endless world of repeating creepy little stories. But there is kind of a tragic, in a Goon style, a tragic love story, I guess, going on here. Love at first sight, I suppose you might say. So anyway, excellent comic. Another excellent comic, another Dark Horse. So that's 3 Dark Horse comics in a row that I'm like. Dark Horse seems to me to be really making a comeback. Oh, you know what? I also read Paranoid Gardens, and I don't know where my copy of that went. So shoot. I meant to be reviewing that here. I loved Paranoid Gardens. Fantastic art. Crazy story. Maybe possibly outdoing Grant Morrison for craziness. And with excellent pacing and everything. So Jared Way and his co-writer Sean Simon do fantastic writing and has fantastic art. Yeah, Paranoid Gardens. So I have to remember to put that one on my pull list if it's not already. William of Newbury, I'm loving. And 3 issues in, the pattern is already shifting, and we learn some more apparent background of William and his brother. I can't remember his brother's name, but his brother's the head of the monastery. And we get nice development with this female character who is a thief who's teamed up with William. So yeah, it just continues to be excellent sort of medieval England, early medieval, I think, cross between Usagi Yojimbo and Hellboy. So, or BPRD. Anyway, and the art is really good. And really good coloring. I wish more comics were colored like this. So anyway, that was awesome. And great art, great coloring. The final book here. I think I've done 25 books in 25 minutes. Conan the Barbarian #3. This series keeps going strong. We're having Conan go back to Samaria. Or I don't think he's quite in Samaria. He's near Samaria somewhere. Back in one of the northern countries. And it's definitely, despite a lot of throwbacks or, touchstones back to the Bronze Age Conan, the best parts of Bronze Age Conan in this Titan comic book, it is decompressed storytelling. Especially, it's very noticeable in this issue, which has a very long section of Conan by himself and remembering stuff from his past and going hunting. And finally, we get a sense of where the plot of this arc is going on the last page or two. Or at least we get some clues. Because even there, it hasn't fully developed even at the end of this issue. But I enjoyed it. The artwork there's an A and B team, I guess. They switch off 5 issues apiece. So now we're back to the art team of Doug Braithwaite and Dangerous Diego Rodriguez, the colorist, and fantastic coloring. The two work together really, really well. And I feel like maybe Doug Braithwaite has even stepped up his figure work on the individual figures. As an aside, I always have a little bit of an uneasy feeling when we dabble into what Conan's childhood was like. Because in a way, I feel like we should leave that to our imagination and not get too specific. But what are you going to do? I mean, Conan's been around forever. You got to explore every aspect of him. But in a way, sort of Samaria and his childhood that made him so tough is kind of, in my mind, should stay in the misty shrouds of mythology almost. Anyway, so you can see 25 comics, maybe 4 of them that I didn't love. Lots of good reading. They're expensive, but yeah, so it's stuff for it's a hobby for grown-ups. The kids can read the stuff in trades when it comes out at the library, I guess. So, talk to you all later. Hope you're having a good comic book week.